My obsessive girlfriend has destroyed everything I once had. My friends, my social life, my career. I've become a deserted island, existing solely for her. And then, after I had abandoned the entire world for her sake, she suddenly looked at me and asked, "Do you think maybe we should give each other some space?" She had no idea that those words had just unlatched the gates of hell. "Caleb, are you heading out again?" Becca's voice drifted from behind me, soft and haunting, like a cold snake coiling around my ankles. I had just finished lacing on my sneakers, and my hand froze midair as I reached for the doorknob. "Yeah, there's an emergency at the office," I said. I didn't dare turn around. I kept my eyes fixed on the dying potted fern by the door, telling a lie so thin I didn't even believe it myself. "An emergency?" She let out a soft, airy laugh. Her footsteps drew closer. "Is it more important than spending time with me?" Her hands slid onto my shoulders. Her fingertips were cool, tracing the line of my collarbone with a light, rhythmic touch. My entire body went rigid. "Becca, it's only for an hour. I'll be back before you know it." I tried to keep my voice steady, but my throat felt like it was closing up. "An hour?" she repeated, a playful yet dangerous edge to her tone. "A lot can happen in an hour. You might run into a pretty girl, for instance. You'll talk to her. You'll ask for her number." Her breath hit the back of my ear, carrying the sweet scent of gardenias. It should have been pleasant, but it felt like suffocation. "I wouldn't do that," I denied instantly. "Of course you would," she said with absolute certainty. "Men are all the same." Her hand slid down from my shoulders, locking around my waist as she pressed her body against my back. I could feel every curve, and beneath the fabric of her dress, the frantic, restless thrum of her heart. "So don't go, please." Her voice softened into a plea. "Stay and play with me, Caleb. I made that strawberry cheesecake you love." I closed my eyes and took a long, shaky breath. It was always like this, every single time. Becca and I had met at a gallery opening at the Art Institute. She had been wearing a simple white sundress, standing silently before canvas, her profile so perfect it seemed curated. It took every ounce of courage I possessed just to ask for her number. We fell into a relationship fast. In the beginning, it was a dream. She was tender and attentive, memorizing every little preference I had. She'd learned to cook my favorite meals, bring me coffee late at night when I was finishing projects, and hold me whenever I felt the weight of the world. I thought I'd found the one. But slowly, the cracks began to show. She hated it when I went out with my friends. "They're a bad influence," she'd tell me, looking up with those wide, innocent eyes. "You have me. Isn't that enough?" She started going through my phone, deleting every female contact, including my coworkers. "They all want you. I can see it in their eyes," she'd say with a deadly seriousness, as if she were merely protecting something precious. Once my best friend from college came to town and invited me out for a drink. I checked in with Becca, and for once, she didn't put up a fight. She just smiled and told me to be home early. I was thrilled, thinking she was finally relaxing. But halfway through the first round, my phone rang. It was Becca. The moment I picked up, I heard her weak, agonized sobbing. "Caleb, my stomach hurts so much. Please come home. I am scared." I nearly had a heart attack. I offered a frantic explanation to my friend and tore out of the bar, driving like a maniac to get home. When I burst through the door, I found her sitting comfortably on the sofa, eating chips and laughing at a sitcom. She looked up, blinking in surprise, and gave me a sweet, dimpled smile. "You're back." I stared at her, my blood beginning to boil. "I thought you were in pain." "Oh," she said, her eyes wide and guileless. "It was bad a minute ago, but as soon as you walked in, it vanished. You're my painkiller, Caleb." In that moment, looking at her innocent face, I felt a chill that reached my marrow. After that, my friends stopped calling. They called me whipped and a ghost. I couldn't explain it to them, so I just took it in silence. Gradually, my world narrowed down until it was just Becca. She seemed thrilled by the result. She would curl up against me like a satisfied cat, whispering in my ear, "Now it's just us, Caleb. It's perfect." I figured this was how it would end. I would be trapped in this gilded cage of love until the day I died. But today, everything changed. An hour ago, I got a call from an unknown number. The man on the other end identified himself as Marcus Thorne, the chief operating officer of Sterling Global Holdings. He told me that my biological parents had found me, that they were the chairman and first lady of the Sterling Empire. I thought it was a scam and hung up immediately. Then came the messages, a digital copy of a DNA report, photos of me as a baby, and a photo of a handwritten letter. It was from my mother. She wrote that I had been snatched by a nanny shortly after I was born. They had spent 20 years searching for me, never giving up. Reading those words, feeling the decades of regret and longing in her handwriting, my eyes stung. Marcus called back. He said my parents were currently at the Chicago Medical Center. My father had suffered a sudden cardiac event, and his only wish was to see me before he closed his eyes. I couldn't stay calm anymore. I had to go. Scam or not, I had to know. Becca, I said, turning around and gently but firmly prying her hand from my waist. I looked her straight in the eye. I have to go out today. I found my family. The smile on Becca's face froze. She stared at me, a mixture of confusion and hurt blooming in her eyes. Family, she whispered. Am I not your family? Of course you are, I said quickly. But these are my biological parents. Biological parents? Her gaze turned icy. She took a step back, looking at me as if I were a stranger. You told me you were an orphan. You said you only had me. I thought I was. My explanation felt pathetic. So now that you have a new family, you're just going to throw me away? Her voice started to tremble, her eyes filling with tears. No, Becca, listen to me. I reached for her hand, but she slapped mine away. I won't listen, she screamed, tears streaming down her face like broken pearls. You're lying. You've been lying this whole time. You are. You're making up this ridiculous story just to leave me. Biological parents? Why don't you just say you're the heir to the throne while you're at it? She was hysterical now. She grabbed the strawberry cheesecake from the table and hurled it at me. Frosting and smashed berries splattered across my face. I stood there, stunned and humiliated. Looking at her face contorted with rage and grief, I felt a sudden, crushing sense of exhaustion. For 3 years, I had given up my friends, my social life, and my career. I had given her everything. I was a marionette, and she held the strings with a death grip. I thought that was love. I thought if I was just compliant enough, just obedient enough, we could make it work. But now I was done, truly done. I wiped the cream from my face and looked at her, my voice low and final. Becca, whether you believe me or not, I am leaving. Now, I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out the door, not looking back once. Behind me, I heard her blood-curdling screams and the sound of glass shattering against the wall. I didn't stop. I knew if I looked back, I'd never leave. I sprinted down the stairs and hailed a cab, giving the driver the address of the hospital. Outside the window, the Chicago skyline blurred by, and my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't know what was waiting for me. A reunion 20 years in the making, or an elaborate trap. But I had to find out. At the hospital, I followed the directions Marcus had sent me to the VIP wing. 2 men in dark suits stood outside the door, their expressions grim. One of them stepped forward to block my path. Can I help you, sir? My name is Caleb. Marcus Thorne sent for me. The guards exchanged a look. One spoke into a lapel mic. Moments later, the heavy door swung open. A middle-aged man in a sharp, tailored suit stepped out. He carried an air of effortless authority. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. You must be the young master, he said, stepping forward to study me with visible emotion. I'm Marcus Thorne, the COO. You look exactly like the chairman did when he was your age. I looked at him, still guarded. My father. How is he? Marcus sighed and stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. See for yourself. He and Mrs. have been waiting a very long time for you. I took a deep breath and stepped into the room. It was massive, decorated more like a 5-star hotel suite than a hospital ward. An elegant, sophisticated woman sat by the bed, her back to me. Her shoulders were shaking with silent sobs. On the bed lay a pale man, an oxygen mask over his face and his eyes closed. At the sound of the door, the woman turned around. The moment she saw me, she froze. She stood up abruptly, hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief and overwhelming joy. Arthur, she rasped, her voice trembling. I blinked. Arthur? That must be my father's name. Ma'am, he isn't the chairman. This is the young master, Marcus whispered gently from the doorway. The woman didn't seem to hear him. She walked toward me, step by shaky step. Tears flowed freely now. She reached out, her hand hovering near my face as if she were afraid I might vanish if she touched me. The resemblance. It's uncanny, she murmured. My baby, my boy. She couldn't hold back anymore. She threw her arms around me and wept. Oh, my sweet boy, I'm so sorry. I've looked for you for so long. Her tears soaked into my shirt. I stood there, paralyzed, my mind a complete blank. But the embrace, it was strange. It was a stranger's hug, yet it felt familiar, radiating a warmth I couldn't explain. I could tell she wasn't acting. The kind of raw, agonizing joy cannot be faked. My heart was in a tailspin. Was this actually real? Was I really their son? That's enough, Eleanor. A voice rasped from the bed. The man had woken up. He pulled the oxygen mask aside. His voice was weak, but it carried an undeniable authority. Don't scare the boy. Eleanor, my mother, reluctantly let go of me, wiping her eyes as she led me to the bedside. Quickly, Caleb, this is your father. I looked at the man on the bed. Even in his weakened state, he had the aura of a titan. His features were indeed a mirror of my own. He watched me, his clouded eyes full of a complex storm of emotions, guilt, excitement, and a fragile hope. Son, he said, his voice gravelly, I'm sorry for what you've had to endure. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Dad, the word felt foreign on my tongue. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, Marcus said, stepping forward to hand me a folder. The DNA report. Caleb's DNA is a 99% match. I took the report. Staring at that number, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. I wasn't an orphan. I wasn't alone. I had parents. I had a family. For 20 years, I believed I had been abandoned. I grew up in the system, enduring the coldness and the bullying. I worked myself to the bone, put myself through college, and clawed my way into a career just to prove that I could survive without anyone. And now, I was being told I wasn't thrown away. I was stolen. My parents were the heads of Sterling Global Holdings, some of the wealthiest people in the country. And they had never stopped looking for me. The sheer volume of information was like a physical blow. Caleb, come home with us, my mother said, taking my hand. Her eyes were pleading. Everything you lost, every hardship you faced, we will make it up to you 1,000 times over. Home? Did I even have a home anymore? Suddenly, Becca's face flashed in my mind, streaked with tears and cake frosting. I remembered her screams, her desperation. Could I really call that place home? Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, I said, trying to find my voice. This is a lot. I need some time to process this. My father nodded slowly. Of course. Marcus arranged for Caleb to stay at the peninsula. Get him whatever he needs. That won't be necessary, I said, shaking my head. I have somewhere I can go. I gave him a small, awkward nod and walked out of the room. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. By the time I left the hospital, night had fallen over Chicago. The city lights flickered like a neon abyss, threatening to swallow me whole. I walked aimlessly, unsure of where to go. Should I go back to the home I shared with Becca? I couldn't even imagine the storm that would be waiting for me there. As I hesitated, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hello, is this Caleb? A sharp female voice asked. Yes. Who is this? This is Lily West, a talent manager at Starlight Management. Caleb, one of our clients, Becca Vance, just attempted suicide on a live stream. What? I felt the blood drain from my face. She slit her wrists. She's in an ambulance on the way to the ER right now. She was screaming your name on the feed, saying you abandoned her. The internet is losing its mind. The hashtag Caleb abandons girlfriend is trending #1 on X. I hung up, my hands shaking. I pulled up the app, and there it was, the bright red breaking tag. I tapped it. The video started. Becca was wearing the white dress I liked so much, sitting on her sofa. Her makeup was perfect, but it couldn't hide the ghostly pallor of her skin. Around her, the floor was a mess of smashed cake and broken glass. Caleb, why don't you want me anymore? She asked the camera, her smile more heartbreaking than a sob. You said I was your everything. You said you'd love me forever. You made up such a silly story just to leave. You said you found your family. Heh, I'm your family, Caleb. I'm all you have, but you don't want me. You have a new family, so you're throwing the old one away. Caleb, you are my entire world. Now that you're gone, my world is falling apart. If you don't want me, then I'll just give this life back to you. She picked up a paring knife from the coffee table and, without a second's hesitation, drew it across her wrist. Blood blossomed instantly, staining her white skirt crimson. She looked into the lens with a haunting, beautiful smile. I love you, Caleb. Even if you don't want me, I'll always love you. The screen went black. The comment section was a war zone. Who the hell is this guy? What piece of trash? He drove her to this. Dox him. He needs to pay. Poor girl, she's so beautiful. How could someone be such a monster? Caleb Sterling? Just wait, you're finished. I looked at the vitriol and felt the world spinning. She had done it. She had nailed me to a cross in front of the whole world. She was going to ruin my reputation, make me a pariah. She wanted me to know exactly what happened when I tried to leave her. By the time I reached the hospital, the ER entrance was swarming with reporters. Camera flashes exploded like strobes, blinding me. Mr. Sterling, what is your response to Becca Vance's suicide attempt? Is it true you dumped her to gold dig your way into a wealthy family? Reports say your biological parents are the Sterlings. Is this a staged stunt? The questions were like knives. I was pinned in the middle of the crowd, unable to move, feeling like a man at a public execution. Just as I felt I was about to suffocate, several large men in black suits pushed through the crowd, forcibly clearing a path. Marcus Thorne emerged from the hospital, his expression grave. "Young master, follow me." He led me through a service entrance and into a private lounge. "Are you all right, sir?" Marcus asked, handing me a glass of water. I shook my head, my voice cracked. "Becca, is she?" "She's out of danger," Marcus said. "But this has exploded. The internet is calling for your head, and it's starting to affect the firm's stock." I closed my eyes in agony. I never thought she'd go this far. She didn't want to die. She just wanted to use her life as a leash to keep me tied to her forever. "I understand," I said, opening my eyes. They were cold now. "Marcus, I need you to do something for me." "Anything, sir." "Issue a statement." I looked him in the eye. "I am cutting ties with Becca Vance. Completely and permanently." Marcus hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Understood. Our PR team is already on it." And I added, "Give me the best lawyer in the city. For the damage she's done to my reputation, I want her to pay tenfold. If she wanted a war, I would give her one." Sterling Global's PR machine was terrifyingly efficient. Within 30 minutes, a blistering statement hit the wires. The statement confirmed I was the long-lost son of the Sterling family, but flatly denied the allegations of social climbing or abandonment. It laid out the reality of my 3-year relationship with Becca Vance, the pathological control, the social isolation, and the constant threats of self-harm she used as a weapon. Finally, we attached an audio file. It was the recording of our final argument at the door. In the recording, Becca screamed, "You're making up this ridiculous story just to leave me. Biological parents? Why don't you just say you're the heir to the throne while you're at it?" My voice followed, sounding utterly drained. "Becca, I have to go. I'm leaving." The moment the audio dropped, the tide of public opinion turned violently. "Holy crap. This girl is insane." Classic Yandere vibes. Listen to his voice. He sounds like he's on the verge of a breakdown. I feel for the guy. So she tried to isolate him. He finally had enough, and she staged a suicide to trap him. The fact that her first instinct was to mock him for finding his parents. That's chilling. The truth is out. The villain was actually the victim. Suddenly, people started digging into Becca's past. Old stories surfaced about her bullying girls in college out of jealousy. There were rumors she had slept with directors to steal roles. Overnight, her innocent girl image shattered. She went from the tragic victim to a calculating, manipulative predator. And I went from the most hated man in America to a survivor who had escaped a nightmare. I watched the comments flip, but I felt no satisfaction. I had won the PR war, but I knew Becca. This wasn't the end. She wouldn't just let it go. Sure enough, the next morning, a text arrived. "You're cruel, Caleb. You ruined everything I had." But that's okay. The game is just beginning. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I knew she was coming for me. I moved into the Sterling estate, a fortress-like mansion in the North Shore suburbs. The security was airtight, cutting off the noise of the outside world. With me there, my father's health began to improve. My mother spent every day trying to make up for 20 years of lost time, drowning me in the maternal affection I had never known. I tried to adapt to my new life as a Sterling. Marcus became my mentor, teaching me the ropes of the family empire. Sterling Global Holdings was a titan with interests in real estate, finance, tech, and media. My days were filled with learning, my mind occupied by the business. I thought my life was finally back on track. I thought Becca had vanished from my world for good. I was wrong. A month later, at a high-stakes charity gala, I saw her again. She was draped on the arm of a man I recognized instantly, Blake Harrison, the CEO of Horizon Industries. Horizon was Sterling Global's fiercest competitor. Becca was wearing a black, off-the-shoulder gown, her makeup striking and bold. She looked radiant, but her eyes held nothing but icy malice. "Long time no see, Caleb," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Or should I call you Mr. Sterling now?" I didn't answer. I just glanced at Blake Harrison. He was a few years older than me, handsome in a shark-like way, his eyes gleaming with calculation. "Caleb Sterling." "It's an honor," Blake said, raising a glass in a mock toast. "I didn't expect our first meeting to be quite so interesting." "I didn't realize your taste was so specific, Blake," I replied, looking pointedly at Becca. Blake's smile faltered for a second before returning. "Becca is a wonderful woman. I find her very inspiring." He pulled her closer to his side, marking his territory. Becca leaned into him, flashing me a provocative smile. That's right, Caleb. Blake treats me so well. He isn't like some people who forget their old friends the moment they find a new family. I didn't want to waste my breath. I turned to walk away. Wait, Becca called out. She broke away from Blake and stepped toward me. She lowered her voice, so only I could hear. You think you escaped, Caleb? I'm telling you right now. You ruined me, so I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to watch you lose everything you care about, piece by piece. Sterling Global, your parents, your bright little future. I'm going to tear it all down with my own hands. She looked at me with a gaze that burned with madness. I realized then that she had completely lost her grip on reality. Becca, I said coldly, if you even think about touching my family, I promise you won't like how it ends. Is that so? She sneered. Let's find out. She turned back to Blake, took his arm, and swept into the ballroom, laughing. I watched her go, a heavy sense of dread settling in my chest. I knew she wasn't bluffing. A war was coming. Becca's retaliation was faster and more brutal than I anticipated. Using Horizon Industries as her weapon, she began a scorched earth campaign against Sterling. She bribed our internal staff to leak trade secrets, allowing Horizon to undercut our major bids. She used her remaining influence and Blake's media connections to spread hit pieces about Sterling Global. Rumors swirled that our new developments were structurally unsound, that our hedge funds were Ponzi schemes, and that our tech arm was selling user data to foreign powers. Sterling's stock plummeted. The board of directors was in a panic, and the pressure fell squarely on my father. His health, already fragile, broke again. Seeing him pale in his bed and my mother in constant tears cut through me like a blade. This was my fault. If I hadn't brought that psycho into my life, they wouldn't be suffering. Marcus, I said, calling him into the study. My voice was tight with murderous intent. I want Horizon Industries erased from the map. Marcus looked at me, his expression grim. Young master, Horizon has deep roots. Toppling them won't be easy. I don't care, I said, slamming my fist onto the mahogany desk. Whatever it takes. Understood, Marcus nodded. I'll set the wheels in motion. From that day on, I became a machine. I lived at the office, dissecting Horizon's financials, hunting for a weakness. I poured every ounce of my being into the conflict. I stopped thinking about Becca. I stopped thinking about our past. My mind held only one thought: retribution. With Marcus's expertise and Sterling's massive capital, we launched an all-out counteroffensive. We shorted Horizon's stock into the ground. We flipped their senior executives, gaining evidence of massive tax evasion, which we promptly handed over to the IRS. We even tracked down Blake Harrison's ex-fiancée, who went on a primetime news circuit to detail his history of fraud and abuse. The blows were relentless. Horizon Industries ground to a halt. Their stock cratered, their credit lines were pulled, and their partners fled like rats from a sinking ship. Blake Harrison was finished. The arrogant tycoon was now a desperate man. He tried to call for a truce. I had my security throw him out of the building. A truce? Too late for that. The game wasn't over. Horizon went bankrupt. Blake's assets were frozen, and he went from a billionaire CEO to a man drowned in debt and facing federal indictments. He couldn't handle the fall. Late one night, he jumped from the penthouse of his office building. I saw the news the next morning. The gruesome photos of the scene took up the front page. I felt nothing. He had made his choice the moment he partnered with Becca. With Blake dead, Becca's shield was gone. Starlight Management dropped her, and brands began suing her for breach of contract. Overnight, she went from a star to a pariah. She called me 1,000 times. I blocked her. She showed up at the estate gates, only to be turned away by security. She stood outside the gates, screaming for me. Caleb, I'm sorry. Please, give me another chance. I won't do it again. Just let me see you. I can't live without you, Caleb. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor, looking down at the broken woman at the gate. Her hair was a bird's nest, her makeup smeared, her clothes tattered. She looked like a ghost. Is this what she wanted? Is this the destruction she promised? I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Let her in. Marcus was surprised but obeyed. The gates opened. Becca scrambled up the driveway, falling to her knees at my feet the moment I stepped out onto the patio. She grabbed my legs, sobbing. Caleb, I know I messed up. Please, just one more chance. We can start over, just like before. I looked down at her, feeling a wave of pity mixed with disgust. Start over? Becca, do you really think there's a before to go back to? There is. There has to be, she cried. I'll do anything. I'll quit acting. I'll stay in the house. I'll never go anywhere. I'll just be yours. I don't want you, I said, kicking my leg free. Becca, from the moment you decided to destroy my family, There was nothing left between us but hate. No, no. She shook her head, her eyes wide and desperate. I only did it because I love you. I was so scared of losing you. Love. I cut her off. I leaned down, gripping her chin and forcing her to look me in the eye. That wasn't love. It was possession. You never wanted me, the person. You wanted a doll that you could control. You ruined my life, you sabotaged my career, and you almost killed my father. And you think I love you fixes that. You are incredibly delusional, Becca. My words were like scalpels. The color drained from her face. She looked at me with a hollow, broken expression. So, you'll never forgive me? Ever, she whispered. Never, I replied. She started to laugh. A cold, jagged laugh that bordered on a scream. Fine. Fine. She pulled herself up from the ground, stumbling backward. You're cold, Caleb. So cold. I hope you end up like me. I hope you lose everything you love and die alone. She turned and ran, disappearing down the driveway. I watched her go, feeling nothing but a vast, empty silence. It was over. The nightmare was finally finished. Or so I thought. 2 weeks after she vanished, Marcus called me. His voice was more tense than I'd ever heard it. Sir, we have a problem. Becca, she's kidnapped your mother. My brain felt like it had been hit by a lightning strike. What did you say? This morning, on her way to the cathedral, your mother's car was run off the road by an unmarked truck. The driver and the men with him were hired mercenaries. We've confirmed Becca Vance is behind it. She has the missus. What does she want? I demanded, fighting to keep my breathing steady. She wants you, alone, at the abandoned steel mill in Gary. No cops, or she kills her. I hung up, my blood screaming in my ears. Becca, you piece of trash. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Caleb, Marcus and the security team blocked me. You can't go alone. It's a suicide mission. Get out of my way. I snarled, my eyes red with fury. She has my mother. If a single hair on her head is harmed, I'll burn this whole city down. I pushed past them and tore out of the driveway. I drove like a demon toward the outskirts of the city. My mind held only one thought, casting a blood-red glow over the rusted skeletons of the factories. I pushed open the heavy, rusted doors and stepped into the gloom. The wind whistled through the gaps in the corrugated metal. Becca, I'm here. Show yourself. I roared. I'm up here, Caleb. Becca's voice echoed from the second-floor catwalk. I looked up and saw her standing by the railing. She held a handgun, the barrel pressed firmly against my mother's temple. My mother was tied to a chair, gagged, her face a mask of terror and tears. Mom, I screamed. She struggled against her bindings, let out a muffled, desperate sound. Careful, Caleb, Becca smiled, looking down with a manic gleam in her eyes. Keep your voice down. My hand is a little shaky today. I'd hate for you to lose your precious mother so soon after finding her. I forced myself to be still. Becca, what do you want? Let her go. This is between you and me. Let's settle it. Settle it. Becca laughed. Caleb, there's nothing left to settle. You destroyed my life. Now I'm going to show you what it feels like to lose the thing you love most. Let her go. I shouted. Take me instead. She has nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with it. Becca's face twisted into a mask of pure rage. If it wasn't for her, you never would have left me. She stole you from me. You were mine until she showed up. She shoved the gun harder against my mother's head. My mother whimpered, her whole body shaking. No. My heart stopped. Becca, think. Please, just listen to me. I won't listen, she screamed. One of you dies today. That's the deal. Either you jump from that ledge onto the concrete below, or I pull this trigger and paint the floor with her. She gave me the choice. A cruel, inhuman choice. I looked at my mother, then at the hard, cold floor 30 feet below. I knew then that there was no walking away from this. Fine, I said, taking a deep breath. I'll jump. Caleb, a voice shouted from the shadows. It was my father. He appeared at the far entrance, followed by Marcus and a dozen tactical officers. Snipers' red laser dots danced across the rusted walls, eventually centering on Becca's forehead. Drop the weapon, my father said, his voice like forged steel. Becca panicked. She grabbed my mother, using her as a human shield. Get back, all of you, or I'll kill her. It's over, Becca, I said, my voice cold. It's not over, she shrieked. I have the leverage. I haven't lost. In her hysteria, she didn't see it coming. My mother, usually so gentle and refined, suddenly snapped. She leaned her head back and then slammed it forward, sinking her teeth into Becca's gun arm with everything she had. Act! Becca screamed in pain, her grip failing. The gun clattered to the floor. I didn't wait. I lunged forward, sprinting up the stairs and kicking the gun away. At the same moment, The tactical team swarmed the catwalk, tackling Becca to the ground. It was over. I reached my mother and sliced through the ropes. "Mom, are you okay?" She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her, looking down at Becca as she was pinned to the floor. I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no pity. Just a cold, dead silence. "You lost, Becca. You lost everything." Becca was taken away in handcuffs. For kidnapping, assault, and corporate espionage, she was sentenced to life in prison. I visited her one last time, behind the glass of the visitor's booth. She was wearing a prison jumpsuit, her head shaved, her face gaunt and sallow. She looked at me with hollow, empty eyes. "Why?" she asked, her voice like sandpaper. "You could have let me kill her. You could have walked away. Why did you come for her?" "Because she's my mother," I said simply. "Just because she's your mother?" She let out a dry, rattling laugh. Tears began to fall. "Caleb, do you know how much I envy her? I was an orphan my whole life. Nobody wanted me. Nobody loved me. I fought for every scrap of warmth I ever had. I thought you were my light. I thought you'd stay forever. But you threw me away too." She looked at me, her eyes begging for something I couldn't give. "Caleb, tell me, did you ever love me? Even for a second?" I looked at her for a long time. I thought about the gallery, the strawberry cakes, and the way she used to look at me before the shadows took her over. I didn't say a word. I stood up and walked away. Did I love her? Maybe once. But that love was so tangled with fear, suffocation, and exhaustion that by the end, I couldn't tell where the love stopped and the trauma began. But it didn't matter anymore. I walked out of the prison. The sunlight was blindingly bright. I squinted, seeing a car parked nearby. My parents were standing there, waiting for me. They were smiling. I took a deep breath and walked toward them. My new life was just beginning. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in 3 years, I knew I wasn't walking alone. Story complete.